am very grateful that we are finally having this hearing, Mr. Vought. Many of us have done a deep dive in your Project 2025, and much of what was in there is obviously being executed now. But I think it's important to note that the American people are really unhappy with the direction that we're moving in, our economy is moving in. In fact, I just saw a Fox News poll that shows a record 64% of voters disapprove of President Trump's handling of taxes, and that's up 11% since last year. Project 2025, as we all know, defunds programs that save lives and help Americans, hardworking Americans, while enriching billionaires. But I want to begin with a very easy yes or no question, Mr. Vought. Do you agree that the federal government has a fiduciary responsibility to be good stewards of the American taxpayer's dollar?
Yes.
Okay, and you and I agree with that. And so I want to, given that it's tax day, I want to focus a little bit on the IRS. And the Budget Lab has a great report that I'd like to unanimous consent to enter into the record. Thank you, Chairman. And it's entitled, "A Weakened IRS Has Substantial Consequences." So spending on the IRS has decreased, obviously, in this administration. And what perplexes me is that the IRS actually has a return on investment. When we invest in the IRS, we're able to invest in fighting tax fraud, and we're able to bring in revenue. The IRS reductions from funding and layoffs have resulted in, that are a result of Project 2025 and the so-called One Big Beautiful Bill, have resulted in about $861 billion in decreased revenue. The layoffs from DOGE have likely resulted in almost $600 billion reductions in revenue. And if DHS gets access to IRS data, that will cost an additional $300 billion in revenue. And we know that the programs that hardworking Americans depend on need revenue. And so I need to ask you, Mr. Vought, what is the logic behind defunding an agency that actually has a return on investment?
The logic is that the Biden administration had increased the IRS to such a degree that it was intrusive on small businesses and people across the country. And I don't want to live in a country in which the IRS is auditing every American in the country because they've filed a tax return.
So you are okay with tax fraud?
Certainly not.
Okay.
I don't assume that the American people are doing tax fraud when they file their taxes.
Okay, well, you and I agree on that. We all file our taxes. We pay heavily into the tax system, but billionaires getting massive tax breaks, really that's where we are seeing instances of fraud, but they are being let off the hook. I just don't understand why we would eliminate employees who are helping us find fraud and recoup our investment.
We're just trying to get back to historic levels of the IRS, and in fact, we actually increased taxpayer
Mr. Vought,
services.
I will tell you as a member of Congress, one of the biggest complaints I get from constituents is they can't talk to a person at the IRS anymore, and the wait times are incredible. So I prefer a system that actually works and that is a return on the investment. And I will tell you, what is alarming about the budget are the cuts to housing, the cuts to education, the cuts to health care. Can you let us know, there are reports that the Defense Appropriations Supplemental will cost about $100 billion. What are you all asking for in order to fund the war in Iran? How much will you be asking?
We're not ready to come to you with a request. We're still working on it. We're working through to figure out what's needed in this fiscal year versus next fiscal year.
Do you have a ballpark? Will
don't
it be-
have a ballpark
Will it
at
be
this
more
point.
than 50 billion?
I don't have a
think?
ballpark for you,
Okay.
Congresswoman.
Well, I appreciate that. I know the American public is eager to know how much this war is costing them, especially at the expense of programs that make their lives easier. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.